Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Pam Kelly. She is a program manager. It's her first time on the show. She's here to talk about Hearts, Hands, and Homes Community Collaborative. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Tell us about Hearts, Hands, and Homes Community Collaborative. That's a lot to fit on a business card, by the way.
It is, and we actually just call it HHH.
So that's the just do the acronym,
exactly.
right?
And the website is actually hhh.org, so it works well. And what the Hearts, Hands, and Homes is, it's a community collaborative that is state funded by the Department of Children and Families, and it helps us get the general message out for foster care, the need for foster care and adoption. And it also helps us explain to the community the types of kids that come into care, the kinds of families that we're looking for, and also the fact that we use a lot of kin and relatives rather than traditional foster care.
Is that helpful? Is that is it basically designed to be an alternative method to get foster care kind of ramped up a little bit more?
The collaborative?
Yeah.
Well, what it does is the community collaborative partners with all of the private agencies that do licensing and training of foster parents. It also works with some of our providers that work with our families that are services in home. It also works with many of our foster parents and adoptive parents who've retired, who still want to help with our messaging to help us recruit new families that can care for the kids coming into care through the department. Since
you guys partner with so many of the other agencies, you're in a unique position to be able to answer the question about the need. What is the need for adoptive and foster parents? Are we in a critical situation?
We are in a critical situation. The region that we work, Region 3, is Windham County, New London County, Middlesex County, and that's the county that I manage the foster care and adoption units for the state of Connecticut Department of Children and Families. And in this region alone, the three counties, there's about just under 800 kids in care, 795 kids in care, whether it's foster care, relative care, or congregate care settings, which is group homes, residentials, hospital settings. And of the 795 kids that are in care, we only have a bed capacity of 240 available foster care beds.
What was that first number you said? How many of the kids?
795 kids in care, and we have about 373 foster homes in the region, but only available right now 241 beds. So
the numbers aren't working out.
No, no. And what happens is we overload families, or kids might stay in congregate care or group home longer than they really need to be, because we really need some families to help match them to. One of the things that we could do is we can place kids, but what we want is a large enough pool so we can do good matches.
Yeah.
That we're not looking for just a bed. We really want to match the child's needs to the family's ability to care for them. And the kids in care are anywhere from 0, newborn, to 21.
Wow.
Some kids are in college, and other ones are coming straight from the hospital, and all of the kids in between. And the kids coming into care, they're not coming into care for anything that they did. They're coming into care because their parents haven't been able to care for them appropriately. They're living in unsafe places. So what we do is the department takes kids into custody, and they need places to live if they can't remain with family or in foster care. So that's what we really are looking for, more foster homes.
And you had mentioned your region, the regions of the state that you serve. If somebody, because the show is throughout the state,
right.
So if somebody's in a different region, they could still go to the website or contact you, and you'd be able to steer them to the appropriate location.
Correct. They can either go to Hearts, Hands, and Homes. She has connections to the other collaboratives throughout the state. But if they just call our main office in Norwich, Middletown, or Willimantic, we will certainly send them to wherever they need to be. One of the things that we do ask is that families, we advertise all the time through Hearts, Hands, and Homes, the newspaper, radio spots. We have informational meetings throughout the region. They're called open houses, informational meetings, where you can come just learn about what it takes to become a foster parent, what are the requirements, how does it impact your own family. So we do that.
That's excellent, because obviously people will have a million questions, and rightfully so. So let's get into it then. Tell me about the process that's involved in this.
If somebody decides that they have seen the message for the need of foster care or adoption, and they are looking to take the next step, they would come to an open house or an informational meeting. It's a formal meeting that the actual formal portion of it lasts about 30 minutes.
Is it individual or is it a group?
It's a group, or
Okay.
it can be done individually if you can't make it to the group settings, which we hold throughout the region, throughout the county, different days, different times, different nights of the week, days of the week. So we do that. They come, they listen to maybe a 30-minute presentation, and then they can ask all the questions they want. We oftentimes have foster parents or adoptive parents there to answer very personal questions. And we also bring in some of our adolescents who can talk about what it's like to be in foster care and what they're looking for in a foster parent.
And they're completely honest about
They're absolutely honest, and what they're looking for is somebody to hang in there with them, help them learn life skills that they can then grow up and care for themselves. They need help learning budgeting, laundry, how to cook, how to drive, how to manage homework, how to organize your time.
All the things that you would do with any
Child.
kid. Yeah, right? I mean, what's the difference?
There is no difference. The only difference is these kids have had parents who are not able to care for them, and they've been either neglected or abused. That's how they come to us, and that's the only difference. And many times, none of the children or youth have any behavioral issues. They just need an alternative place to live.
Aside from all the legal and technical vetting process that takes place, there also is like sort of an intangible chemistry that needs to happen, right? I mean, It's hard to describe, but it's probably one of the most necessary aspects of it.
Right. We ask you to take in children that you don't know, care for them as your own, love them, help them grow up, move on, whether it's to an adoptive home, back home to their birth family, or onto independent living, and we ask you to do that as you would your own children. And there's also a chance that they might not stay with you, so you're going to suffer grief and loss.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think that if they've taken the step to get to that point where they're interested in inquiring about being a foster parent, they've made up in their mind, I think anyway, that unless they discover it's too daunting, but I think they're prepared to love and they're prepared to care. You have to think this out for a while, and if you make the step, then I think you're on your way.
I think if you get to the step where you want to come to an open house, you've taken that step.
Yes.
We ask you to talk to your family, not just you and your husband or your wife or your spouse or your partner, but your children, because they're also impacted. And then we have something that we call TIPS MAPS. It's a trauma-informed parenting preparation course that we put our families become involved in. It's a 10-week training course that helps you understand the kinds of behaviors that our kids could have, and emotional needs, behavioral needs, healthcare needs that they could have because of the abuse and neglect that they might have suffered. Whether it's chronic or severe neglect, chronic or severe abuse, the kids have trauma-reactive behaviors. They act out, they do certain things because of their history, and it helps the parents and the families who are caring for our kids understand that and know where their behavior is rooted. And they also have services that we put in place to learn how to develop skills to better parent kids who have had trauma histories.
So they're prepared better for it.
Yes.
When they go into these group sessions, these informative sessions, what are some of the bigger questions that are asked?
They ask, am I going to have to work with birth parents?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and our answer is yes. All of our kids have parents.
Yeah.
All of our kids love their parents.
Right.
Our parents love their children. And they can oftentimes care for their own children. It's just that they can't do it right now until they deal with their own issues. But yes, our parents, they visit, they work with our service providers, they're involved with the families, and I think that birth families to our foster and adoptive families are scary because of stories that they hear, but that one bad story that birth mother yelled at the foster mother's a very small percentage. The majority of our families do really well with our foster parents because you're not just fostering the kids, you're also fostering the parents. You're parenting, you're fostering parents to learn how to parent, how to structure, how to bathe, how to care for, all the same skills that you're fostering that birth parent also.
I was going to ask you misconceptions that people may have, because you mentioned someone heard a scary story, but that's not the norm. They just heard that one time. So what are some misconceptions?
Well, I think that birth parents are going to harm you. I've been working with the department for almost 30 years, and that's less than 1% of our families even bother foster parents, but it's still scary. You're also competing with that birth family for attention and affection, when the more the more people the children can learn to love, the better off they are. So if I'm living with my mom and dad and I have to come into foster care, and my foster mom works with, likes, and respects my birth mom, that relationship between the two parents is going to be better. The relationship between the kids and the two parents are going to be better. And when I do have to go home, I'm going to have a support system in that foster family if anything comes up, and so will my mom. Hey, you know, she's giving me trouble doing her homework tonight. What worked when she was with you? And the foster parent will often say, oh, we have a quiet time at the dinner table, no TV, no anything. And part of that is that little support that sometimes our birth families need when the kids do go back. So it's really developing that partnership. And that's what we really do with our birth families and our foster families in the department, is really partner with one another so that our kids get the best care possible, and parents can understand what's going on with their kids, understand their issues, and have them return to them. And our foster families can do the same.
What is the most difficult part of it all, of the whole process? Is it the kids? Are the kids ready to accept a new family because they just want in the worst way? It's just a better situation for them, or is it something with the parents, or is potential parents, or is it something with the process? What's the one big thing that's the toughie?
I think that for the kids coming into care, they would rather not come into care, because if you're going to move in with a foster parent, you don't know them.
Right.
Unless they're a relative or a friend that is going to be licensed to care for you. So our kids don't want to live with strangers. And if they have to live with strangers, they really want those foster parents to also get to know their parents, their siblings, their school friends, that they had a life before they came to live with you, and you have to be welcoming of that. The kids don't show up today in your foster home and are now a brand new life, and their old life doesn't exist. Their old life will always exist.
Right.
Even if you adopt, we ask our adoptive families to maintain some kind of relationship, whether it's in-person relationship, visiting, even just sending pictures yearly to birth families, so that they can know that their kids are safe, they're doing well, and those kids will know that, you know, my mom trusts you with me, and I'm okay living with you. And if, you know, I know my mom has problems, but you at least met her. So when they turn old enough to say, you know, I'd like to find my mom, or can you tell me a little bit of my mom, you can actually be honest and say, I met her. This is what she looked like. This is how she talked. This is what she said about you. She told me you liked strawberries but didn't like Cheerios. And that's important for kids to know growing up, that you need to know their history. They come with history. Even if you get them a month old, they come with a month history. You should know that.
It's a good time to take a break. Why don't you give out the website for people to go and learn more? I think it's the easiest website ever, right?
Yes. For the Hearts, Hands, and Home Collaborative, it's HHH.org.
Okay.
And then we also have the Foster Adopt, CT Foster Adopt, CT Foster/Adopt, and that will get you right to our website at the State of Connecticut Department of Children and Families.
All right, Pam Kelly, Program Director, Program Manager. A fascinating topic, and we've got a lot more to get to, so we'll take a short break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest is Pam Kelly. She's a program manager. We're talking about Hearts, Hands, and Homes Community Collaborative, although HHH is much simpler.
Yes, it is.
And we've learned a lot so far. A lot of other stuff I want to get to. Like, for example, we did another adoption foster show a while back, and one of the topics that we got into, which was interesting, is the fact that times have changed to the point where, like, the LGBT community can adopt, be adopted, and there obviously is less of a stigma than there was back in the day. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Correct. Connecticut doesn't discriminate with same-sex couples. We haven't for 25 plus years, and we license many same-sex couples. So they adopt, they foster, they provide therapeutic foster care, which is a foster care program for some of our more difficult adolescents, behavioral needs and emotional needs. But we allow single parents, grandparents, young unmarried couples. You don't have to be married to be licensed for foster care adoption. You can be a same-sex couple. You can be a single parent. So there are many family makeups that we license. And what we look at for licensing is, do you meet the basic criteria? Do you have a place to live? Do you make enough money to meet your needs? Are you going to be accepting of our kids and their issues and birth families? And do you meet the background checks for criminal and child protective service checks? So that's kind of what we talk a little bit about the open house. And then as you go through our trauma-informed parent preparation classes, a lot more background checks are done to make sure that your family, not just you as the parent, but your own children and your extended family are ready to provide care for kids who are not born to you, who might not stay with you, or who might be adopted by you. We make sure that the family's ready.
When you say not stay with you, does that mean that it could be a temporary situation, they can go back, or maybe they're at an age where it won't be that long anyway? Or
Right. If a child comes into care, our first placement tries to be into family, relatives, but our first job when we get a referral because of abuse and neglect is to keep kids out of care.
Right.
We work and we partner with parents, their support network, their relatives, their friends to try to find a plan where one of them can care for a child without having to be licensed as a provider. But if they do have to come into foster care, we try to get one of that support network licensed, and we call that kin care or fictive kin care. So we do that first. But if you have to come into care and you have to be licensed by the department, that's when we do the mutual selection. So, and that's when we do the licensing process, the home assessment, and do all of that.
When people are considering this, one thing that always goes through their mind, and understandably so, is the financial burden that will place on them. Can they do it? Can they afford it? And so that's going to be a question that undoubtedly is going to be asked.
Right, and what we look for is someone who has a consistent form of income. It has to be a job. It could be Social Security, but it has to be a consistent form of income. It can't be a temporary form of income like workman's comp,
right,
or unemployment, because that kind of ends. Yeah. Correct. So we look at, do you have enough money to meet your needs? Because what happens is we provide a stipend for caring for our kids, but it's a stipend, it's a reimbursement schedule rather than a prepayment. So you have to be able to provide for your family and our children for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks before your first stipend check would come.
And so that means you're paying for it initially, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so you need to have the money.
But we do offer a stipend from anywhere from, I think it's about $750 to $900, depending on the age of the children. And it helps offset the cost of summer camp, childcare, food, utilities, travel, clothing replacement. So we do provide that stipend. But again, it's a reimbursement schedule, not a prepayment schedule.
I think another thing people might think is that if they decide that they want to, be a foster parent, taking an adoptive situation to them might mean that they take on this task, which they'll lovingly do, but may not realize that there are many training opportunities for them to learn and not necessarily go in cold, and that there are many sources that are available to them that can be helpful to them. Right.
We have a lot of training. And pre-licensing training is the trauma-informed parent preparation class. But once you're licensed, we have post-licensing training that's available all the time on a regular basis, whether it's online, in person, or by video, DVD, and then you take a question and answer at the end. But we do trainings in support groups and just enhancement groups all the time. And if you get a child, let's say you have a child placed with you today who has oppositional defiant disorder, so they have some behavior issues that they struggle with, we can offer you training on that child's specific behavior so that you're better prepared. We also have a caregiver support team, a team of professionals who come into your home and work in your home as in-home service so that you can, again, learn the behavior and how to build skills and tools to solve that behavior while it's going on real time, and that's a caregiver support team, and that's a service that goes in with really difficult placements. We also have therapeutic foster care services that we put in because kids might need that clinical higher level case management, and there's agencies throughout the state, 14, I think, that provide that level of care. So there's a lot of opportunity for pre-licensing training, which is what our trauma-informed parent preparation class is. But also, once you're licensed, the training and the learning never ends, nor should it, because kids change every day. And every child who you get, even if you've been trained in oppositional defiant today with this one Johnny, tomorrow you might have a Maria who has the same diagnosis but totally different behaviors. So your learning never ends.
Every parent that exists will tell you that learning never ends, and there's no manual for parenting, right?
Right, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about partnering with our birth family, that if they can learn how to manage that child's behaviors too, at the same time as the foster or adoptive family, it helps that child with consistency when they do go home. So that's what we talk about. Our families in the training are told that we try to prevent placement, but if placement happens, our first goal is to get them home, for the kids to go home. And if they have to stay in care, we want to make sure it's a permanent placement, not a temporary living placement. So kids, we try to get them home. If we can't get them home, we want to find a long-term home, and then we want them to stay where they are at.
Does that mean that the vetting process will take a while, the whole process, and even if that's the case, that's a good thing because you want to get it right?
Well, the training sessions are 10 weeks long, and during that 10-week session, we do a lot of assessment. We come out twice to your home during the 10 weeks of training, but we also go out even before you get into training. And then we go out 2 or 3 times to finish up the home study and finalize the assessment. So it could take 3 to 4 months to get, once you start the group, to get finally licensed. But once you're licensed, you get placement right away. If you're an adoptive family, rather than having a temporary placement, you would be registered at our adoption exchange, our permanency exchange, for a longer term match, because what you're saying to us is you want a child to come to you and stay with you. And even that is, we talk a lot about legal risk adoption, which is a whole nother topic for probably another
show, right?
Or two.
Yeah, wow.
So we have, and we have people who could come in and talk about just the adoption and the legal risks. Are you willing to take a child who's been removed from parents who we don't think can rehabilitate? So we want to find a permanent home sooner, because again, children need to know that they have a place to live with people who love them, who are going to keep them, so that they're not living forever not knowing where they're going to be a month from now, a year from now. I mean, you really want to grow up knowing where you belong, and that sense of belonging is really, really important.
You want to avoid a runaway situation if they're not happy, because that might be their first instinct.
Right, and we also want to avoid a family who can only care for them for a month. So now we remove them from mom and dad. Now they're with a foster home and they have to move in a month, and then that family can only keep them 6 months. So we want
no way to live.
No, and we don't want to have multiple placements, because again, kids have attachment issues, and they learn and they love and they trust, and it's the loss, the constant love and attachment and loss, that really affect kids long term.
Well, one thing we want to mention is, we mentioned this in the first segment, is wherever you're watching the show, whether it's Hartford or Eastern Connecticut or Fairfield County, we will steer you in the right direction to the office that's closest to you, I guess, right?
Right. You can even just look online and just put in foster care in Connecticut on a web search, and it'll get you to your local website. Or you can put in Department of Children and Families, and there's a foster care and adoption link that will tell you who to contact, what's the number, the address, and all of that, including open houses, informational sessions. But if you need to, you're welcome to just call our office at 860-886-2641, and someone from the foster care unit will steer you in the right direction.
Can you just tell me quickly, we're almost out of time, adult adoptees, what is that? What are they?
They're adults who were adopted as a child, who are now looking for their birth family.
Okay.
And again, another episode, we have search units at our central office who can help them find their birth families. And the adult adoptees often search for birth families because they've lost connection with siblings or parents, or they need medical information. We have a whole unit that does that at central office. It's, again, people want to know where they were from, not just where they are now. They really want to know their history, and that's what we tell our families. Respect their history, and become part of the history. Nowadays,
the birth parents are more, it seems like, to me, maybe not, more willing to have their identity be known.
We often tell birth families that they can always keep the Adoption Exchange notified as to where their whereabouts, or if their child does search for them, they'll have that information.
Gotcha.
So we'll update that for the birth families, but birth families can't search for their kids. The kids have to search for the adults.
Gotcha. All
So
right.
that's how it works.
All right. We learned a lot today. I'll give you an opportunity to mention the websites one more time for people to go and learn more.
Okay, you can always look up Hearts, Hands, and Homes Community Collaborative in Connecticut, or just hhh.org, or for us, it's Connecticut Foster/Adoption, or you can always just look up Department of Children and Families, and there's links to all of that.
It's impressive that you can remember all that, by the way.
It's a struggle.
Just the websites and the phone numbers, too. Pam Kelly, Program Manager, we learned a lot today about Hearts, Hands, Homes Community Collaborative. Thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
That is our show for today. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.